welcome back to my channel. So today's video is so exciting. It is going to be a video on everything labor and pregnancy. I had asked you guys to ask me some questions. I still get questions till this day over my experience after having my little baby. And I got so many questions. I told you guys to ask me real raw questions that I'm not going to be afraid to answer. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Everybody's experience is different, so I just want to put that out there. But this is going to be based on my experience. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you are new, welcome. My name is Anika. I'm glad to have you. Make sure to subscribe down below and give this video a thumbs up. And if you are returning, welcome back. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, guys. So what I'm gonna do is pull up all of the questions that I got. I have a whole list of them. You can't really see, the camera's a little bright, but I'm so excited to answer these. So let's go ahead. The question is, did you tear? So yes, I did tear. My tear was so minor that they didn't even rule it a first degree tear. And the other question was if I got stitched and if it hurt. So I have my baby right here behind the camera, so sorry if you guys hear anything. But I did tear. It was so minor. Like I said, I needed one stitch. I got one stitch. They didn't even rule it first degree. I believe there's first degree, second degree, and I'm not sure what else, but mine was so minor. The stitches did not hurt, and the epidural was still like highly, like, it was still working like completely when they were stitching me. I got one stitch. It dissolved on its own 3 days postpartum. It wasn't painful to have the stitch down there, mainly because maybe I didn't rip that like that bad that it didn't hurt, because I've heard horror stories about ripping or tearing, and from my experience it didn't hurt. It was uncomfortable and it itched. Like, it was so itchy down there, and that's the only way to describe it. But it did dissolve on its own. So yes, I did tear. That it wasn't too bad, but I did hear that if you do tear, that witch hazel pads really work. Like witch hazel, I think they sell them for all you mamas out there that are expecting babies. I heard those are so good. For me, I didn't really use all that crazy stuff because I didn't tear that bad. So the next question is, what were your must-haves for the cookie and for bleeding after? So my must-haves, I have two must-haves for sure that I would definitely recommend you guys get. One, you get at the hospital, so you don't even have to buy yourself. It is the peri bottle that they give you. It's like a squirt bottle. I did the worst thing ever and put cold water in my peri bottle and sprayed down there. My soul left my body and went to heaven really fast. It was so painful. Don't do that. What I would do is get warm water and put it in there, spray down there, and it's a lifesaver. That for sure was a must-have. And the second must-have was definitely women's diapers. I got the Always Depends, Always Discreet. That's what they were called. You could get them on Amazon. You could get them on Walmart, Target, wherever you are at. They were the best things ever. I felt secure. I felt like everything was held together perfectly. A lot of stories like you're gonna bleed forever, you're gonna bleed all this time, and it's gonna be gushes and gushes and gushes of blood. And honestly, I heard all these stories and I was like preparing myself for the worst, and I bled super heavily for 3 days, and I came home on the 4th day and I just went to regular sized pads. Like, I wasn't even in my diapers anymore. You'll bleed pretty heavily the first couple days, but when people tell you you'll bleed forever and so much for like 6 weeks postpartum, maybe some people do, but I for sure didn't. It was only not even a week. So my must-haves, I went off on a tangent as always, are the peri bottle and the diapers. Third question is, did you poop while pushing or did you have the fear of it? So I did have the fear of it, and like one of my oldest YouTube videos, like my first or second, I did mention that I had a fear of pooping. Like, I was so embarrassed if I was gonna poop. Like, I don't want to know if I pooped. So I did have a fear of it, like a fear of embarrassment. Really, I didn't want to be embarrassed. But so many people are down there and they're like looking at you, and you get checked every 5 minutes, and you have no personal space, that pooping is the last thing on your mind. Like, you're not even embarrassed of it anymore. It's just poop. Like, oh well. But I did not poop. To clear up the question, I did not poop. Also, I had some people tell me, like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to poop. Ma'am, nope, I didn't poop. And I know for a fact I didn't poop because my mom did take a video of me down there, like all down there, like everything. She was up close, she seen the baby's head come out, like it's everything down there. And I didn't poop. And I even asked the nurse if I pooped, and she said no. So No, not everybody poops. I didn't poop, thank God, but yes, I did have a fear of it. That was a good question. The next question is, were you trying to become pregnant? If so, were there any complications or you were just not avoiding it? Oh, no, I wasn't exactly trying to get pregnant. I got my birth control taken out in November of 2018 and I ended up pregnant in January of 2019. So I got pregnant within 2 months time, exactly trying, but I was blessed that we got pregnant and I didn't have any complications. I was on birth control for 6 years. I had the implant in my arm. I had it for 2 rounds of 3 years each. And when it was time to take it out, I just decided that I didn't want it anymore. It was doing so much harm to my body and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And at that point in time, me and my husband were like, well, if it happens, it happens. If we have kids, we have kids. If we don't, we'll try later on. But we weren't trying, but we also weren't avoiding it. We weren't using protection, or we were just kind of like playing the field, and I ended up pregnant. How long until your cat feels normal again, and how does it feel right after? So right after, I can easily answer that. You are super swollen, which obviously, I mean, you just pushed a big baby out. I was scared that it wasn't going to be the same anymore, and that was my fear. Like, oh man, what if it's completely destroyed? Like, you know, I didn't want an ugly cookie. You know, I'm gonna call it cookie throughout this video. I didn't want an ugly one, or like I didn't want to look at it. I was scared, but it does feel swollen right after, and that kind of throws you off. Like, do I look? Do I touch? Like, it's scary. So super swollen. I would say for the first week it's swollen. Starts to feel normal pretty much after that week. I mean, you still are sore, like somebody kicked you down there, but nothing bad. How long did you bleed? Everybody says different. Every woman's body is different, whether you're on your period, your pregnancy, your labor, everything's different. But in my experience, I bled super heavily for 3 days, and then I stopped bleeding around 3 weeks postpartum. And when I say bleeding, I'm not meaning like heavy flow, I need diapers and these big pads, just like a regular pad. It was like my period for 3 weeks, and it wasn't all that bad. So I did bleed heavily for 3 days and then 3 weeks total. I hope that answered your question right, how to question it. But the worst part of it, she asked me whether it was the contractions, the pushing, the pregnancy, like what was the peak of it all. And I'm gonna be so honest and tell you that it was the contractions. For sure, the contractions. I give all of my praise to the woman who did it naturally. There's no way I could have gone without the epidural. The contractions were so bad. I got my epidural when I was 5 centimeters dilated, and if I would have gone anymore, I probably would have choked my husband out. It was so painful. Once I got my epidural, I didn't feel anything. I just felt pressure. If anything, like, they're like, oh, you're having a really bad contraction, because they monitor you. You have like IVs and everything, and I didn't even feel them. So I would definitely say the worst part of it all is contractions. I didn't feel anything else after the epidural. Anything you expected to be a certain way that ended up being opposite of that. Yes, actually, the epidural actually took me by surprise. I heard tons of horror stories, and you'll hear me throughout this video say that I heard tons of horror stories because for whatever reason, people like to tell you their worst stories ever of their Aunt Carol or whatever, that she had this horror story and this happened and this happened. And I guess they want you to, like, they want to prepare you for the worst, which I get it. But if you know a pregnant woman, just refrain from telling her any of that. She doesn't really need to hear it. She hears it from everybody else, I promise you. So yes, the epidural took me by surprise. It's not what I expected. I expected to be in so much pain, and the contractions literally overpower the epidural, that when you're getting the epidural, it just feels like a bee sting. The contractions are like way over a needle going in. And I know that sounds so crazy, but from my experience, my epidural was just a bee sting compared to these contractions that I was getting. Did you get postpartum depression, and how did you cope with it? So no, I did not get postpartum depression, thank God. I'm so blessed that I didn't get postpartum. I did get baby blues, and it just lasted 1 day. The first day that I was home from the hospital, I was so sad. I missed my belly, I missed being pregnant. I cried in the shower that first day, and I was just completely devastated. I didn't know what was going on. I was so emotional, but I did get the baby blues for 1 day. Question, like, how did you cope with it? Because I didn't need anything to cope with it. It kind of just went away on its own. And for anyone out there struggling with postpartum, you are so strong. You got this, and you will get out of it. Did it hurt to poop and pee after giving birth? Honestly, no. I was so scared of this. There's one of those stories I heard again. And I'm sure that it is painful, like if I would have torn a lot down there, but it wasn't painful. Whenever I went to pee, then the first pee actually after labor, the nurse has to be in the room with you. They have to check your pee. So they put a little cup in the toilet and they have to like, it's nasty, but at this point you're so violated and you have no personal space that it's not even that big of a deal. So she sits there and she watches you pee, and I peed 3 times in this cup to fill it up, and they checked it, and yeah, it's weird. But no, it didn't hurt to pee. And in the hospital, they give you stool softeners the whole time you're there. So pooping was a breeze. Like it wasn't bad for me. So if you're going home and your hospital might release you like maybe a day after you give birth, definitely invest in stool softeners, because it was a game changer for me. We were in the hospital for 4 days. So by the time like I was fine to poop on my own, so it didn't hurt at all. I said again, if I were to tear down there like a lot, I could imagine all the pressure and like pushing and like being constipated and just like, I feel your pain, girl. I'm sure it hurts, but for me personally, it did not. What was your experience with the epidural, and how long after the epidural did you feel relief? So this is a good question, and I could go off on a whole thing about the epidural itself. My experience personally, my epidural was my lifesaver. Whenever I got my epidural, it felt like a bee sting to me, and it wasn't all that bad. I did feel relief immediately, like 10 minutes after. I was so shocked by the epidural because it like was not what I expected. I expected like a little bit of numbing or something. It completely took everything away. I couldn't feel from my hips down to the point of my toes. I couldn't feel anything. I wanted to move or switch sides or get comfortable on the bed. A nurse would have to call in a second nurse and go and like literally move me, pick me up. My legs were as heavy as bricks. I couldn't even pick up my leg. It was so like strong. So I did not feel one thing pushing the baby. Like I felt nothing. If anything, the nurse's fingers, I just felt pressure when she was like, you know, holding me down there to get the baby out. That's all I felt, and it just felt like pressure, like poop, like a poop pressure whenever you're trying to push a poop out. That's what it felt like. So my epidural experience was so good. The only thing that I will say is that I still do get back pains, like for like 2-3 months after. I felt really pain, like a lot of pain on my back where they put it, and it felt like a bruise, like if I hit my back against something and bruised myself. That's what it feels like. But every once in a while I do notice that my back hurts a little more. So in the time being, it's awesome, but long term I could definitely tell that it's affected my back. So what happened as soon as you gave birth? Did you get to just hold her? Yes. So as soon as I gave birth, I pushed for 30 minutes. As soon as you give birth, they put the baby on my belly, and while all of this is going on, like there's so much going on that it's kind of like, it's like a blur. They put her on my stomach, and while she's on my stomach and I'm picking her up and they're cleaning her up and sucking like the fluids out of her mouth and stuff, cleaning her up, putting ointment on her eyes, I get to hold her. Of course, she's on my belly, and all this time they're delivering my placenta. You don't even feel the delivery of the placenta. I thought it was going to be a whole other thing, like put the baby to the side and let's push this placenta out. That was what I was thinking going in, but no. I don't know if they pull it or if they like go in and grab it. I don't know. I couldn't feel anything still with all the chaos going on, plus my epidural was still like there a lot. They delivered my placenta. My baby was on my belly. I picked her up. Dad cut the umbilical cord like right then and there. And yeah, so you do get to hold her. They kick everyone out of the room. I had my mom and my husband in there. They made my mom leave, and it was just mommy and daddy time. And the first hour that you have your baby, they want you to do skin to skin with your baby. So I just like on my bare chest, I have my baby on my chest, and we do skin to skin for 1 hour. Like daddy doesn't get his time until that 1 hour is up, then he could have all the time he wants with her. But I love that they do that. I guess it's like for bonding experiences and stuff like that. So I get to hold the baby for 1 hour all to myself, and yeah, so I just get to hold her. How long after actually giving birth are you able to clean up and change clothes? So that's a really good question. Whenever you're in the delivery room, like I said, I hold the baby for a whole hour. We're in there doing mother-daughter like bonding, skin to skin for 1 hour, and then after that The family gets to come in, see the baby. A nurse comes in and does her weight, her measurements, all that good stuff. Dad gets to do his first diaper, whatever parent wants to do their first diaper change. And so they do all of that happen, and you're still in there, you're visiting, and then like an hour later, 45 minutes later, they take you to the recovery room. And whenever you go to the recovery room, you're still in your gown, you're still like nasty and like the same stuff that you delivered in. They're really well about cleaning you up. Like, they're not just gonna leave blood on your legs, and you know, clean you up with towels and all of that stuff as it goes. Like, they clean up as you go. And I know it sounds gross, but they don't just let you like stay bloody forever. So they clean you up, they take you to recovery room, and in the recovery room, they're having to push down your stomach, just push everything out, and that is so painful. And as they're pushing everything out, they're just checking you. You can't even like get up to go to the restroom by yourself. You still have your catheter. They pull the catheter out, they're still checking you, and get up and walk to the restroom or get up to eat or anything, because your epidural is still like kind of still there, and they don't want you to fall or anything like that. So you don't get to change and shower until hours after. I don't think I got to change and shower until like 2 to 3 hours after I had the baby. Once they took me to the recovery room, they checked me, they did a whole scan, they did my blood pressure, they did the whole shebang, took my IV. They took my IVs out. Finally, I kept bugging because they put it in so tight and it was so uncomfortable. I still actually have a scar on my wrist from where they put it. And finally, 2 to 3 hours after, I asked if I could shower, and I had to do an exercise, and they made me walk around the nurses station 4 times before I was able to get in the shower by myself and clean up and wash myself. They just didn't want a fall risk on their hands, I guess. So a while after, for sure. Do you believe you had your daughter at the perfect timing, or would you have waited or started sooner? Yes, I do believe that I had her at the perfect timing. I was like not wanting kids at all, so if I would have waited longer, I think that would have gotten worse as time went, because I was so used to my husband. And I did have my husband alone to myself for 9 years. We've been together 9 years, married almost 3. So it was time that we just started building our family, started our family, you know, and we're so grateful that we had her at the time that we did. Has your relationship changed since the baby arrived? Yes, actually. I will answer that in another video. Me and my husband had a Q&A also, and we got so many good questions, so that will be in another video, but it definitely has, and I will go into the reasoning on why it's changed and how it's changed in that video, so make sure you stay on the lookout for that. Did driving make you nervous after having her? That's actually a random question, but yes, I was. Till this day, I'm still nervous. My husband drives us around for the most part. There's only been like a few times that I've gone to church by ourselves and the grocery store, and every time I get so nervous, like I feel it's a mother's instinct to like want to protect them at all times. So if you're in the car, if you're at home, like whatever, you're like, be careful, don't hit me. So yes, driving still makes me nervous. And also, I didn't drive for like 2 to 3 months after I had my baby. So the minute I got behind the wheel, I was so excited to get out of the house, and I went to Walmart down the street, and I didn't remember how to drive. Like, I hit a curb, and it was just it was weird to drive. Even being pregnant, my husband drove most of the time. So that's a funny question, but yes. Okay, so this is where it gets juicy. Is it awkward having sex after giving birth? So we're being real here, ladies. We're being real. To be real with you, it definitely is not weird, but you feel awkward. Like, you don't want him to feel like you've changed or anything. Like, you don't know how it's gonna feel to them postpartum, and that's what my fear was. I'm like, oh, it probably looks bad, and you know, I have my baby back there, by the way, so sorry. But it's not weird, it's just like you feel awkward, I guess. It's like having sex for the first time ever, and you're like like all nervous. That's how it feels. Hurt, it was uncomfortable, and then I'm breastfeeding, and they say that dries you up down there, and it definitely does. So it didn't hurt, it's just uncomfortable. That's how I could put it. And it feels the same to him. I asked him right after, and it felt the same to me, just a little more dry. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. I'm trying to think of anything else around like that question. But yeah, I think I answered it pretty good. After giving birth, you cannot have sex 40 days postpartum. Like 6 weeks postpartum, you cannot have sex. You cannot do anything until your doctor clears you. And let's just say 6 weeks is long, because right after, like, anyway. Okay, so somebody asked, how do you have sex with the newborn in the room? I thought this question was so funny. So I was so weirded out. I was like, she's gonna see us, that's weird. But she doesn't know, number one. And number two, most of the time we don't do it with her in the room. Usually we do it when she's napping or playing real fast and she's keeping herself entertained. We're like, let's go 2 minutes, like, let's go. So we'll do that. I feel like as a newborn parent or a first time parent or a parent in general, quickies are the way to go. And yeah, it's not awkward, and we've tried it twice with her in the room and she's been asleep both times, and it's more like when you're asleep and you wake up to do it, so we're not like purposely doing it. I don't know how to answer that. Usually you just make time whenever they're napping or playing or something. I mean, if it comes down to it and you have to, I mean, do it. Oh well, they don't know, they're asleep most of the time. The last and final question is, what are some things that helped you get through the pain? Was it bouncing on a ball? Was it massaged by your husband? Blah, blah, blah. Like stuff like that. The position that I gave birth in, you know, she asked me that also. So during labor, actual labor, pushing, obviously my epidural played a huge part. I did give birth just a traditional way, laying down, legs on the little things. I don't think that a different position would have helped me. Because number one, I couldn't really move my legs with the epidural. I could not pick up my own legs. My mom and a nurse and my husband had my legs, like still holding them on the strap thingies, because I couldn't even feel my legs. They would have just fell. So the position, definitely not. What helped me whenever I was still pregnant and I was getting contractions that night was bouncing on a yoga ball. And in my pregnancy favorites, I'll link that video down below, I talk about my yoga ball, my medicine ball. I use that to bounce most of my pregnancy when my back was hurting, and they also help my contractions. So definitely invest in a medicine ball, yoga ball, whatever you call them. Whenever you're pregnant, I highly, highly recommend it. That helped me so much. And when you're actually giving birth, your husband or your partner, whatever, just having them there, just having them present is such a big, like, pain reliever to me. For sure, he helped me. He was so supportive, and that really answered all the questions. Thank you guys so much for being real, raw, and honest. If you guys want a part 2 to all of this, make sure to leave that down below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Share this with a friend, and yeah, I hope you guys again enjoyed today's video, and until next time, I will see you guys next time. Bye.